thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Penasini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold him.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a pretty pumped up instant reaction podcast for the Tip Sheet. I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, and joining me to revel in let's call it a landmark win. A landmark win for the Parramatta Eels as Jason Ryles and his men are spurred to a 20-point victory over the Tricolours out at CommBank Stadium in round 25. It's my good mate, Sixties. Big fella, we had a great pre-game show out at Stirlow's. We erred on the side of optimism. We went with our hearts, and maybe not enough with our hearts. We went for narrow wins, and the Eels went out there and belted the piss out of the Roosters. And I've got a nice little soundbite that sums up my feelings on the game, a little bit of a cross-code media here from the NFL that I'll get to shortly. But how are your energy levels after a very, very good win, mate?
Mate, I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it because it was so different to last week. And the Roosters dished up stats that were similar to what we dished up last week, maybe worse. Yeah, probably worse. But
I'll argue that last week it was self-inflicted by Parramatta. This week the Eels were the inflictors. And again, that goes to the bit of media I'll be playing very shortly. The physicality, the intensity, the aggression was just on another level. And you don't want to see a team put together two bad performances in a row because that is a sign of a bad team, isn't it, Craig? It is a sign of a team that hasn't got the identity, hasn't got the self-belief to be able to pick the pieces up, pick themselves up after putting together a disconsolate performance against South Sydney. And they came out this week and, geez, they buried that game. And before we talk any more about the game, we do have a couple of shout-outs to give, as always, to the sponsors of the show. We mentioned that we were live at Stirlow's, Parramatta Leagues, home of the Parramatta Eels, also a fantastic partner of the Tip Sheet and TCT. And you can always catch every bit of Parramatta action there, home and away, and it's obviously a fantastic venue if you want to enjoy a wide range of beverages, foods, and facilities, and even catch up with your two least liked or maybe somewhat liked podcasters. But yeah, fantastic place. We really enjoy the partnership with PLC, obviously, and then the other sponsors being Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta. You've badged them the OGs, Craig. That's what they are for us. They've been there since pretty much day dot on the Tip Sheet, and I can only imagine that Greg would be going pretty hard right now. He would have been very pumped with this victory.
I just had a text message from Greg, and he said, "I await the usual tweet." I said, "Already done, Greg. Already done. Yep. Ready for the podcast." He said he'll catch it on replay tomorrow. So no doubt he's enjoying his night tonight, and why not? I was a bit slower getting out of the stadium tonight, mate. There was plenty of people high-fiving
It wasn't quite a Bulldogs post-game, was it, with the cars honking and hollering, but I imagine it was pretty high energy out there. And, chat here has been fantastic. We've been going since I put the podcast up about 15 minutes on the hour, and people instantly in chat having, kicks us up the top there. I see Eminem and Sebastian, and we're right in there from the start. A lot of great energy coming out of this win, and understandably so. Parramatta Eels, they weren't flawless, but they were pretty damn good tonight.
Yeah, it took a little bit longer to get home. It's normally a very quick trip for me to get home from CommBank Stadium, but it was a little bit harder getting out of the car park, and we seemed to strike every set of lights coming home, but didn't make it in too bad a time, I guess. John, what can you say about a game like that? I want to ask chat to already start thinking about their 3-2-1s, because for the life of me, mate, I'm going to struggle. I am seriously going to struggle with the 3-2-1s.
You might need to have the Mitchell Moses Award for Mitchell Moses, and then the 3-2-1s for everyone else, perhaps.
Yes. Look, I was just looking at the team stats, and it was interesting because our completion rates were high. Theirs were quite low, but we didn't make the run meters that they made. We didn't make the line breaks that they made. We didn't make the tackle breaks that they made. They had an average set distance much further than ours. And when it came to missed tackles, they had a better tackle efficiency, like 91% to 85%. Missed tackles, we made 31 missed tackles to their 19, 21 ineffective tackles to their 16. But their big one was their 21 errors to our 11.
Which completely, we talked about the Eels and the Roosters having a similar error rate coming into this game, but that is a uncharacteristically large error rate for the Tricolours, who have been on. I mean, AJ's in chat sending some celebrations to us, and we do appreciate that, AJ. Turning up after a loss like that shows a lot of guts, and certainly not going to.
And AJ, we had Alan Katzman.
Yes,
came up to us in the podcast.
You wouldn't believe it. Craig had him scripted, like
and
not
AJ,
planned.
And I had AJ
and
scripted as well.
Yep, and we just bounced around and forgot to mention Alan. And he came up and introduced himself. It was, and then Craig showed him the script and proof that we were going to talk about him. It was funny little world. But yeah, thanks for turning up, AJ. Your boys have been on an absolute tear, and we were pretty. We tipped at the heart this week, but it was with a concession that your boys were most likely going to get the win. And Sam Walker going off obviously changed your attacking structures pretty significantly. And while look, I'm going to sit here and celebrate the Eels' physicality. But there is an acknowledgement there that Walker going off so early definitely dashed the Roosters organisation and put a lot of pressure on Hugo Savala, who will have nightmares about Rowie Smith. Relentless pressure from Parramatta's dummy half throughout the game, really taking away time from the Roosters' big boot there, because that's where Zavala's been so good this year, is with his ability to clear the ball the way Mitchell Moses and Jamal Fogarty do. And yeah, Rowie really put him under pressure there.
Yeah, so look, John, I think probably the only negative I can think about for tonight, well, because I want to go on to all the positives, but the only negative I can really think about tonight was what the hell's going on with our goal kicking?
Mitch comes in, slots it from the sideline, and then pulls the one just to the right of the post. I don't know. They need a mental reset in the goal kicking. Zach is obviously not confident in his goal kicking because he ceded the kicking duties to Moses, and whether he was banged up, maybe he was banged up physically in the game. I missed if he'd been, just a bit dusty there, but he gave the last two kicks to Mitch, who aced the hard one and shanked the easy one. Just, it is a real big blot on the team right now. You're right. And theoretically, it should be a lot better next year. You'd think that one of the two of them will reset and get back to their best. But it has been a real area of inconsistency for Parramatta this year, and it's been a real area of frustration for fans, in the stands and online and wherever you've been watching the game on your couch with your family. The groans and moans, and I say them without being facetious there, of fans when you see the kick getting pulled or just missing. And that's the thing, is they're not often being shanked, but they're just missing consistently. So there is a failure to correct, I guess, based on your initial misses, which is, something to definitely dig into. But look, I talked about the bit of media I wanted to talk about or share with our chat and you, mate. And like I said, it's a bit of cross promotion for the NFL. Funnily enough, it comes from my team's rival in the 49ers, and this goes back a few years to a character coach I had in Jim Tom Sawyer, who ended up being a head coach in a bad time for them, and actually had a fart in a press conference once. But this is some sideline audio that I think really encapsulates what Parramatta's energy was today.
And he was supposed to go over the center again. He didn't want to do that. You understand? Because you're coming like a madman. Okay? Bludgeon, 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 bludgeon.
Just go out there and bludgeon them. That was the mission today, and they went out there and did it. Jack Williams, who I sent you a text message saying Jack the Ripper, was out there like a hitman. We saw Charlie Geimer cutting down people. Junior belted someone on the goal line at one point. I think it might have been Billy Smith. Maybe I'm wrong about that one, but it was one of the backs. The boys fronted up so much tonight in physicality, and that is a mean Roosters team. We looked at that pack, Craig, and they brought Spencer Leniu into the starting team as a statement to try and win the physical battle up front. And then the far White, you had Lindsay Collins, you had, as we mentioned, Spencer Leniu, Victor Radley out on the edges, and the Eels really went to war. And look, that's not the sort of effort you can maintain every week, but these are the games you want to be up for with that elevated physicality, and they timed it perfectly.
John,
Junior Tupou, thank you, Chris. Yeah.
I would argue that teams with premiership credentials can maybe lift to that level, because Penrith,
they find a gear like that. Exactly. Yeah. And we saw it even against Canberra this week, where I know they lost in Golden Point on one of the moments. I mean, did anyone watch that game? That was one of the moments of the season, that insane sequence of Cleary hitting the uprights into the Raiders going the length of the field. But, last few weeks, you've seen the Panthers just find a gear of physicality, and that was not too dissimilar tonight.
John, just before we go any further, I really don't want to talk too much at all about the NRLW or the New South Wales Cup. The New South Wales Cup
vastly under strength this week. They
vastly under strength. So I don't think there's any point in even talking about it, because there were a whole lot of players that were left at home to help with the preparation, because they flew out on Friday, and the Eels were still training on Friday, the NRL team. The NRLW, John, all I'm going to say, because I just want to get it out of the way, the first half was arguably one of the best halves of football that I've seen that team play, especially in attack. Like, they looked really, really sharp. They were troubling the Roosters. The second half was diabolical.
Yeah, it was one of those games where you needed halftime not to happen. The Roosters were able to reset. The Eels lost their momentum. And, they obviously ceded the 12 points early on and then fought back, and they were really in their pocket. Defensively, they still had a lot of issues. Like, they were so passive again, and the Roosters were carving out big meters, and that's a issue that's been plaguing them every week, and the Roosters took the most advantage out of it of any team this year. But offensively, that was the best they've looked in that 40 minutes. And they actually had a bit of a tempo to their play, and unfortunately, they just couldn't maintain it through the second half, and the class of the Roosters won out massively.
John, if you thought that the line speed was passive in the first half, we have to find a new word for the second half.
Yeah.
Like, in all seriousness. And I don't want to talk too much more about it. What I will say is that Taryn Aiken just toyed with the defence today, and she demonstrated the value of a quality halfback. And you've got a number of like a couple of really good ones in her and Southwell. I think the Eels somehow have to find a playmaker of that caliber to threaten for a premiership.
Yeah, Neil Ross. What line speed in the second half? Exactly, mate. It was non-existent, and unfortunately, that Roosters back line, they just carved out massive swathes of meterage. Too good. And look, the size of some of those forwards for the Roosters, Amber Hall and who's the other edge player? I have the team list here. It was Aaliyah Nasio. Absolute monsters. Just they managed to spot up some of our smaller players. Paul Fleur-Ginn got run over in the second half by Nasio. She tried to square up and just couldn't stop her.
John, what a pity we couldn't spot them for when it came to mobility, because that really should have been something that we could have looked at to press home an advantage. But anyway, that's all I want to say now about the NRLW. Yep. Let's talk about this NRL game. It's
Parramatta Eels 30, the Mark Nawaqanitawases 10. Big win for the Eels, but if I don't see Mark ever again, that'll be enough for Paul playing against him. Good Lord, that boy can play some football.
He is a freak. There is no question that he is a freak. He is. Seeing him play in person, I was impressed with how strong he is. For a start, the confidence levels are off the chart with what he and the ease with which he threw that torpedo pass behind the back. How the hell are you supposed to defend against that? Because it wasn't supposed to happen. It did. It wasn't supposed to happen.
No, and like the try set up for Teddy, Josh Adokar did a great job corralling him after he caught the ball. We had Eels pushing across and support. He just gets the ball like a toy in one hand and then just waits for the defense to commit to him too much and then just lobbed it to Teddy. Just stupid. And then the short kickoffs. You know, the Roosters were out of it, but he just kept taking short kickoffs. What a freak. And I think it's fair that he's not in the running for Rookie of the Year. But by the same token, I think he's probably damn sure in to bring in the Dally M Winger of the Year. Who's he up against? Like, who plays football better than him on the wing right now? He is being phenomenal.
No, nobody, John. Now let's let's talk about the stark difference between last week and this week.
Yeah.
Because last week we talked about shortcuts, about not doing the basics and the 1%ers, and then you have a look at two of the tries that were scored tonight with from Jordan Samrani, and the hustle to keep chasing the ball that was there. It was demonstrated through the night, throughout the game, that when the ball was hitting the deck, there were Eels players looking to jump on it. There was just all of those little 1% moments that were there. You could see that the team was switched on in that regard. I do have. I joked before and about the only criticism I have is really like in the goal kicking, but if I want to be hypercritical, what I will say, John, is I don't like our spread of the ball from the kickoff 10 metres out from our line.
There are times for it. There are times for it. I think we overuse it. When you've done your homework on a team that can congest their kick chase focused on where the ball has been, the point of landing of the ball, we've seen Luca Moretti in particular have some great success attacking with Dylan Walker on those kickoff shifts. But I think we go too far into that pocket for sure. And the Roosters certainly ate it up tonight. They were able to pin us a couple of times on short kick return sets, like not just the initial run, but the actual set itself. I agree.
Yeah, like we weren't getting out. We were barely getting out of the 20-metre zone, if at all, in 4 or 5 tackles, because we go wide from the reception, and then go wide again and go wide again.
Yeah.
And before you know it, before anyone's tucked the ball under the arm and gone, I'm going to hit this up hard, we're 4 tackles deep into the set, and we're not going to go anywhere. When we had more direct play, I thought we looked a lot better from that kick reception. But look, I guess that's the nature of the brand of football that Jason Ryles intends to play with Parramatta, is that he is going to look to chance there, and he's going to look to play expansive football. And for the most part tonight, the players were able to execute pretty much error-free, I would have said. There are
obviously a handful of errors here and there, but that was pretty pristine execution. We talked about it in the pre-game at Sturlo's, but the shift in weather conditions obviously favouring Parramatta's brand of football, with the lack of traction we have in the middle right now, being so light on middle forwards, no Sam Tuivasa, no Luca Moretti, among a few others. We really stood to benefit from having a dry track out at CommBank, or a relatively dry track. And we were able to use the ball really effectively. I think that Joash Papali looked the most natural at 5'8" that we've seen him so far. He integrated really nicely into our attacking structures.
Early on too, when he sliced through, but he lost his footing, he was going to score.
Yeah, that was a hell of an ankle tap.
He was going to find someone in support who was going to score. Just that he lost his footing as he cut through the line. I would agree with you there. He certainly looked the most natural, and you know what? I think good on him and I'm not saying that as a throwaway line, because it'd be easy to go into your shell a little bit if you hadn't had such a great game the week before, and there was a lot of criticism that was coming his way last week. I think unfairly, given the limited experience that Joash has, first of all in first grade, let alone in the 5'8" position in first grade. So it was good to see that he played with confidence tonight, John. The other thing that I wanted to highlight as well was tonight was Dylan Walker's 250th game, and he got that nasty knock early on.
Yeah, head clash of Lindsay Collins.
Yeah, but what about that kick across field for the Fox?
Well, that entire this game featured so many insane plays that we're going to miss a few of them in our discussion, and it'll be unfair to not talk about them, but that's the nature of the beast. That was one of many of the insane plays where Zach Lomax does an incredible job to cut back inside on that short side raid to get to the ball, get the ball out. Isaiah Yongi with a silky tip on back to one of his support players who gets it back to Dylan Walker, who just instantly summed it up and then got away that perfect crossfield kick to the Fox, who had a very fun game, a fantastic intercept try. Obviously scored the other try there off the Walker kick. Had a great tussle down that sideline of Mark Nawaqanitawases. And, it was just a really, really good game, wasn't it? Like that Dylan Walker in his 250th game having some great moments there. I tipped him for best on field. I don't know if he's going to get the 3 points, but he had a big impact.
Oh, he was a significant contributor, without question.
Yeah.
Without question, and it's and it highlighted his game highlights the difference in the type of football that the Eels.
When you watch, it's interesting because when you do, it's hard to do like a full tape dive on the NRL because you don't get the broadcast camera angle, you don't get the all 22 like the NFL. But when you watch Walker play, there's a lot of similarities to Mitchell Moses in their peripheral vision, when to pass and when not to pass. His pass selection, and it's when he doesn't pass that is the real important thing. I think you watch him and he's always looking to ball play, obviously, but he's always reading that outside man shooting up and whether the option is to pass and cleanly, and he'll pull the ball back in and make a run or go for the short ball instead if he has that sort of trigger or whatever sequencing is on the defense that he's seeing, and he's very consistent about it. So like I said, it's very similar between him and Mitchell Moses in how they use their pass selection, and when they don't pass, that really makes him such a good ball player.
There must have been a bit of homework done on the Roosters too about the that little outside-inside play through the ruck, because the Eels pulled the trigger on that about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Matt Dury featuring as the runner.
Yeah, I saw some love from Dury in chat going up a bit back there. Another great game with the bench for him. Yeah, he came in really physical, had a nice shot as well defensively at one point. But you just love his post-contact meters and his business around the ruck. And look, what are the numbers here? I don't think it's going to be incredible reading. He had 16 runs for 100 meters, they're saying. So highly productive, but not necessarily hugely efficient. But I think that's doing a bit of a disservice to how good he was off the bench. He had a lot of juice, and he's been. Next year, it's going to be really interesting to see because there's a lot of congestion on that bench, and Matt Dury's really put his hand up to hold a place there. But there's some big competition there too. Obviously, Sam Tulvadi when he comes back, Luca Moretti and Kidione Katonga are also going to shake up the starting pack and then force guys back. But Kelma Tuolangi didn't do much wrong tonight either. He had one drop ball in the goal line when he made a half break. Beyond that, he helped set up a try and was really good running the ball. So there's a lot of bodies in the forward pack that won't fit into the 8 spots, depending on how you see the utilities available.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, we're looking at obviously Jack de Belin comes into the team next year,
a presumptive top 17 player, certainly.
Yeah. You have to presume that there will be some recruitment around forwards as well, because
which is why you're looking for not necessarily a marquee, but in that sort of territory recruitment, because you've got so many guys that are doing a good job. Like you've got the guys that you build that aren't the building block you build around, but the guys you put around the building block, right? You've got so many guys that can be really productive contributors. You want to go find that guy that can help elevate them to being plus contributors.
Yeah. Question for you, John. Do you think the Roosters, and I know like you acknowledge the fact that they lost Walker early on and you don't want to lose a halfback in the early stages of a game, let alone any stage really, no. But they had enough talent in that team, and that they could really cover that. I mean, they've got Connor Watson, who's such a great player. They've got Tedesco. He's got a bit of ball playing skills.
Victor Radley's a ball playing lock forward.
Radley, yeah.
They certainly have options there. And I mean, they've got a playmaker on the wing that's as good as a halfback, it feels like at times, and Marky Mark. But yeah, look, it was disruptive to the Roosters. But even at that, I mean, the incident in which he was taken from the field was literally indicative of the brand of football the Parramatta Eels were playing at that point. Kelma Tuolangi just trucked him. It wasn't a bad tackle attempt from young Walker, but he just got flattened. And again, indicative of how aggressive and brash the Eels were coming into this contest. They wanted blood. They wanted to go front, shoulder to shoulder with the Roosters. And that was not present last week. That was, in fact, completely absent last week. And that was the big difference between them and South Sydney, was South Sydney had that bit of desperation. And if the Eels that we saw this week played last week, they put 50 on South Sydney. I don't think there's any...
Yeah. In fact, John, at the start of the game, I was being frustrated by how good the Roosters scrambled.
Yeah, there was a couple of times like you met the Joash half break. I think we saw Jack Williams also make a half break, and there might have been someone else. Mitchell Moses might have.
And then Dylan getting held up over the line where it looked like he was a certainty to score.
Yes, he scores 99
there were just
times.
moments all over the field where the Eels looked like they were about to bust the line at any stage.
And that was the tale of the tape, Craig, is that the Roosters were up for this, even including the Sam Walker injury. They were up to it. They were desperate. They were hungry. But by the time the second half had rolled into that final quarter, that again, if you were there at Stirlers, you would have heard Craig talking about the lull that both these teams have historically had this year in the final quarter. They were walking corpses. They had no energy. They're being belted, maybe not into submission, but not far off. And that's where we saw some of those unforced errors really start to creep into their game, and that completion rate drop and plummet because the Eels had just pummeled them. And that was work done in the first half, work done in the third quarter.
So, John, my question to you was going to be, could the Roosters say that they didn't turn up or they took the Eels too lightly? I don't think they could, because I'm seeing that desperation at the start. And as you said, there wasn't anything left in the tank in that last 10, 15 minutes.
What obviously, I watched this one from the couch, Craig. I was back with my old man after doing the show. And what I found telling, because you wouldn't have been privy to this being at the stadium, was the halftime messaging of Trent Robinson was very focused on that you're in a hell of a battle here. He was very direct to his boys about how the Eels were playing. You're in a hell of a battle. You need to get back into the grind. You need to cut down on the errors coming out of your own half, your yardage sets, and look to go set for set for them because they're here for the win. And they tried to do that, but then we saw, as you said before, Jack Williams in particular, but a couple other guys in Junior, Kelmer, Charlie Geimer, and anyone else that I'm missing that had some real physical defense. They forced the errors, and they just put pressure on pressure on pressure, and then eventually the unforced errors started coming. But yeah, it was a statement win by Parramatta, and it was you don't get panaceas and cure-alls in the NRL very often, but after what they produced from South Sydney last night, this was night and day. Last week, that was truly night and day, and it can't be the standard week in and week out. You cannot play with this kind of physicality and sustain it. But this is a metric for them to use against the good teams. This is how you need to be approaching the Melbourne Storms, the Penrith Panthers, in a given year, the Canterbury Bulldogs and the Canberra Raiders, or whoever is that team of the year, because that can be a pretty transient thing, right? Whoever is the breakout team of a given year, and you need to be able to.
So, John, Shelley wrote this week about the Eels lacking that killer instinct. Did they have that killer instinct tonight?
Yeah, and I don't know how Jason Ryles taps into it consistently and what the messaging was this week to unlock it. But as I said, you can't go to that well too often because it will run dry. You got to know when to use it and how to prime it. But he did something this week to tap into a killer instinct. They were hungry. They were desperate for the loose ball. We saw multiple players diving on loose passes and getting turnovers. We saw the hustle for the Jordan Samrani tries, the couple of bin chicken specials there, where the first one was just ridiculous. The entire sequence of that Moses bomb that came down with ice into Lomax catching it and getting it to Will Penasini, picked it up off his ankles and then kicked ahead. Passed back to Lomax who kicked, and then Geimer chases and then pinballs out to the Ibis on the far side and he gets it down. And then Joash's face is just like being the mega hype man there. Yeah, that was on the back of the aggression. Yeah.
Yep. So, John, now what I'm actually interested in is some one-liners from the chat room. When I say one-liners, what I'm after is a line that they feel sums up the game, if they can share that with us. Have we got any comments that you've picked out as maybe some highlight comments that we can share on the podcast that people in the chat room have been?
I did see a great comment from Hardley on earlier. I've got to go find it. He was thanking Mark Nawaqanitawase and that incredible flick try or flick offload try, flick pass try he did earlier on, for giving the courage to inspire Junior Tupou to do the same for Jordan Sambrani's second. Quality work there, mate. But yeah, what do we got here in chat? Some people having fun with the Dean Ritchie article, which we alluded to in another podcast.
Yes, no, it's
bulletin board material.
Worth out back at him for that. Look, those sorts of things. Maybe we should thank him for that, because he's. Let's face it, journos write articles like that because they're after a narrative.
It's rage,
There's been the narrative that have been running about the Eels' improvement. So he's like, let's ring this out a little bit more. I'll take the polar opposite view, so we can ring out a little bit more airtime about Parramatta by taking the contrary point.
And look, he was fishing for engagement. He got it. Maybe didn't count on as big a backlash as he got, because I said in chat earlier, Brad Arthur was an outsider in the NRL, so he didn't have many mates among the established press. And so when he copped a hit piece or a hit article, it was kind of no one had his back in the press. Jason Ryles is a bit different though. Andrew Johns and Brad Fittler and all those boys and the boys on Fox played with Jason Ryles and have massive respect for him. And I think you could see some of that pushback in the post game. Brafen Nass had a little bit of a clap back at Dean Ritchie in the post game there. Had some fun with the article. And yeah, look, I imagine the boys might have used it as bulletin board material. I imagine maybe they didn't even think about it at all. It was rubbish. And like you said, it was a little bit of counterculture from Ritchie to try and get engagement. So maybe it worked for him, maybe it didn't. But let's go to chat. Andrew Colley says, everything we weren't last week, we were tonight. Exactly. In a sentence, that is pretty much the game.
Well summed.
I think Mitchell Moses pretty much intimated the same in his post-match interview with Fox, just saying the things that were off on last week, we dialed in on this week. Rob says they played cool and confident, Mitch and Dill's influence. Yeah, Dill, look, a lot of credit needs to go to Dillon and how he's handled the entire situation, put his hand up to play centres and did a good job tonight. We actually had a couple of looks.
Look at his run meters, John.
Yeah, he in the last couple of games, he probably struggled to find a consistent involvement at centre. Tonight was not that issue. He got heavily involved. And there were actually, I don't know if you caught it in the stands, mate, there were a couple of looks down that left edge where it was almost Joash playing halfback and Dillon playing 5'8", which was a really interesting attacking sequence. Didn't quite open up the Roosters, but nearly got Josh Adokar over once. So pretty cool stuff. Some feelings that the Eels finally got some 50-50 calls, which helped them in the contest. Maybe. I think we did get a few calls. There were also some bizarre calls in there. Angus Crichton being ruled to not have played at, was it Jermaine Hopgood or Jack Williams? I can't remember whoever it was run down that edge in the kick ahead. And then Junior Barlaw being ruled to have passed the ball but lost it. So it could be officiated by the video ref in a field that they can't usually do it. We did get some calls. I'm like, it's whatever. It's obviously much easier to sit here and talk about the referees when you have a comfortable win. But yeah, there was that sequence before halftime where they managed to sneak in a scrum with 1 second left, and it looked like the Roosters scored a freaky try. Would have had a lot of fans in the sideline and the stands hand in heads, mate.
John, I wouldn't in the podcast use the sort of language that was coming out of my mouth.
Would have made a sailor proud. Yeah.
It was like there was utter disbelief that they had scored under those circumstances. But I always suspected that there was, the way that the ball came flying out, that there might have been a hand or at least a disruptor. And I know they don't.
It doesn't exist anymore. Like it was a topical thing for a couple of weeks. It's been. I did also chuckle at the bunker deeming that Joash Papali played an active role in running someone off the ball. Meanwhile, they couldn't rule that before. I don't know, but whatever.
So, any other comments there, John? One-liners.
Chris Hill having a bit of fun with the post game. How good was Kevy asking the Fox what animal he was after scoring? The Fox said, "I'm a kangaroo, brah." Sending a bit of messaging to his international coach there. Bit of stiff competition for the Fox to make it on tour, but he would not look out of sorts in a green and gold jersey, I'll tell you that. He's been in good form this year. What else we got? Paul Taylor saying that Yongi tries hard but has some crucial errors in him. Yeah, the error rate for Yongi is certainly an issue, but I imagine it'd be the same with Joash too. I think it's a function of a young player that is still trying to find the balance in first grade. If that progresses into next year, then we probably have a legitimate concern there. But I think
if I could throw in just an alternate view on that, which is there's a positive that I see out of it, which is when those errors happen, they got the memory of a goldfish. They just put it behind them, and they don't let it cause them to go into their shell in how they play. I'm talking about Iongi and Joash. The only error that I've had a problem with recently with Joash was the one last week against South, when he was letting that ball just sort of sit there in front of him without hustling to dive on it.
You mean Iongi?
Iongi.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That was an uncharacteristic. That one was an absolute coach killer error last week. I mean, that's the one that he would have been. I don't know how much would have been chewed out in the video review, but there's no doubt he would have been pulled up for it. And hopefully it doesn't, because that is an effort error, and that's the ones you don't forgive. And
if there's no other, we got any questions there from the chat room?
One sec, just Paul's apologising for swearing. I didn't even see him swearing. It's okay, mate. If it got deleted, then it was the auto mod, not me, mate. I'm not sure what the filters are for our auto mods, so anyone that gets pulled up. The only comment I deleted was old mate Ben Overbitches last week, and he did not like Overbitch. Sorry, he did not like that. So, but it was a deserved timeout. Guys, any questions about the game? We got obviously a fair bit to talk about here between who you thought was best on field and who you thought helped turn the game for the Parramatta Eels. Jordan Samrani had a nice stint off the bench, Craig, running off that right shoulder of Mitchell Moses. The goal, we talked about the goal kicking, Paul. It is an issue. I don't know what's going on. Mitchell Moses comes in and slots the one from the sideline and then pulls the one next to the posts. So obviously it didn't cost us the game this week, but I don't know. Parramatta Eels are struggling with their goal kicking right now, and maybe it's a confidence thing, which is kind of hard to believe for both Lomax and Mitch being so self-assured, at least as it presents into footballers. But goal kicking an issue. Yes, that was the Jack Gibson Cup, Chris. There should be. I imagine the club's going to release the pictures at some point in the coming days. But the boys took a picture after the game with the trophy. So a nice little get for the Parramatta Eels there. A bit of a minor silverware in a season that isn't going to otherwise feature any major silverware. Sean Farrell asks, would you be tempted to see how Iongi plays at 6 and Joash at fullback? Not an unreasonable question. I've seen a lot of people, more so earlier in the year, talking about Iongi's potential at 5'8", because I think he has a little bit of history there at Penrith. I think it's a consideration in a minor capacity. I think that both players are primary fullbacks, that's pretty clear. But Joash is more experienced in a broader set of skills and positions, because at the Dogs he played a bit more 5'8" in the front line coming through the 21s. So I imagine it might get some small consideration from Ryles, Craig, but I think with the other candidates that are also pressing alongside Joash, I think Iongi's probably going to be locked into number one presumptively.
John, I've got a question that I'm going to throw to you. It's come from one of our listeners, Darren Mulcaster, and he's wondering whether we see any similarity in the way that the Eels are performing in their first season in this sort of rebuild year to how the Bulldogs performed in their first season under Cameron Ciraldo. Are there any parallels that you would draw about reshaping a roster, having the sort of season that each club is having in the first year under a new coach?
I'm just trying to. I actually posted some screenshots about this to our mate. Look, in terms of the wins in the first year, I think in 2019 Ivan Cleary won 11 games with the Panthers, and I think that Cameron Ciraldo won 7 games with the Bulldogs in his first year. So there is you don't make a 1-to-1 correlation there, but there is a template there for minimal or restricted success on the field in terms of your wins and losses in the first year of a coach coming to a gig or a joint, and being able to build into next year. And I think that the Eels are legitimately showing signs that they can be very competitive next year. And is the timeline going to be a 2026 push for the premiership? I would think that we temper expectations somewhat to hunting for the finals next year and then seeing what may come, may be. Because once you got a foot into the postseason, obviously anything can happen. If I stop bumping my microphone cables, sorry. But I look at the finals for next year and then maybe 2027 and 2028 as the real 2-year window to have a crack. Excuse me. But yeah, next year anything can happen. This team has potential. It's gonna hinge on the development of some young players and also on our ability to recruit 1 or 2 players. To how fast you go from being an outsider of the 8 and developing to being a legitimate contender.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's face it, Jason Ryles, as a new coach at a club, he's probably got 2 years of a free shot of being able to coach without being under pressure as a coach.
There is something to be said for, and this has been the conversation around the Canberra Raiders' success this year, and the fact that Ricky Stewart essentially has tenure at Canberra. The difference between coaching for your job and coaching to succeed. Because a coach that has to coach for his job makes more rash, short-sighted, smaller ceiling decisions that look to focus on short-term success rather than organic long-term success. And Jason Ryles has a rare opportunity in the NRL to use the first 2 years of his time here in a 4-year contract, and hopefully well beyond 4 years, obviously. Hopefully he can be a coach here for a long, long time. But he has the opportunity within the first 2 years to really build. And it should be said too that while he's done a fantastic job in his philosophy and his ability to promote young players, it's been a fantastic alignment. And I say this in the most positive way, a fantastic alignment of arriving here just as a crescendo of young talent is starting to crest. That SG Ball team, the Jersey Flegg team, it is lined up beautifully for a coach with the philosophical tendencies of Jason Ryles to promote development over immediate success to really put the Eels in a position to succeed long term. So it's been a beautiful marriage across coincidence there.
Yeah. Another question for you, John. How do you rate tonight's win compared to the other performances in the season? Is this one of the best performances from the Eels this season? Is it the best performance from the Eels this season?
In terms of messaging, in terms of the physicality, it is clearly our best performance, I think. There's been some other really good efforts. I mean, the character to get that first win against the Dragons in Golden Point was a really nice springboard for the team. I think that they showed some guts in that stretch where they beat the Seagulls but then narrowly lost to the Panthers and the Bulldogs. And then obviously more recently they had a really good win against the Broncos and then backed that up into a very torrid and aggressive game against the Storm. But I think this was the first time everything's been realised at the level that it was tonight, where we saw expansive and opportunistic attacking football, Eels playing some heads-up unstructured stuff too, but more so the aggression and defense, which I think is going to be, if you want to be a contender, it needs to be a calling card. And I think it was important to do that against the Roosters, who came into this game as potentially, it could be argued, one of the form 2 or 3 teams of the competition.
Yeah. So that same question goes to chat as well. If anyone's got if people want to share their opinion.
Yeah, people are already on it saying, Eminem says the Brisbane win was good. Jamie says win of the year, no hyperbole. Josh Randall saying he thinks it's the best full 80-minute performance, which is probably where I trend to as well, Josh, where, like you alluded to, Craig, in the pregame, that final quarter of play has been a real bugbear for both the Eels and the Roosters. This was probably the first time this year we took the game by the scruff of the neck in the final 20 minutes. Neil Ross says, very good win, but the Chooks couldn't hang on to the football. That is a fair statement too. I argued earlier in the show tonight that part of that was a function of our aggression and defense and us forcing errors. But certainly by the end of the game, the Roosters were making a number of unforced errors. Chris Hill says tonight's win is a real glimpse into the future. Sean Farrell agrees with Josh Randall. Jamie says best team effort. Carl says the best line speed all year. Yeah, definitely. Great line speed all night. Obviously, Riley Smith was phenomenal, not just in line speed, but the kick pressure. Rob says we played well. Roosters were crippled early, but the Roosters were crippled early. Roosters then self-destructed. Yes, it was our pressure that caused drop ball, but they stuffed it as much as we wanted. Yeah, and look, I think that is a fair look from the other side of the spectrum here, is that the Roosters weren't at their best tonight. How much of that was reflective of the Parramatta's pressure? How much was that of like between the Walker injury or concussion and then just self-implosion? it's always hard from the outside looking in to get the balance, leveled out properly. But I would like to think that the Eels contributed significantly to the errors, while the Roosters also had the self-inflicted issues there too.
Yeah, so currently, John, the Eels have climbed to 13th place on the ladder. I'm
probably getting some flowers from the Dolphins, the Seagulls, the Tigers, and who else is there? What was the other team out there? Dolphins, Seagulls, Tigers, and no, there's one else. The Dragons can't make it. So, yeah, probably some flowers coming to Jason Ryles this week.
Yes. Look, think back to the start of the season, and I thought somewhere between 6th and 12th would be where the Eels would finish for the year. I'm a bit disappointed that we are likely to come in around that 12th mark, maybe 13th. When all's said and done, I would have liked us to push up just a little bit higher, but I think when it comes down to it, that if we can end up with 9 or 10 wins for the season, it ends up being quite a productive year, considering the players that have been let go by the club during the year itself.
Oh yeah, and the resources that both by decision and by misfortune that we've been without this year have really, I think, elevated the efforts of the other players in the squad. I think there are guys that have pushed through some niggles and injuries that probably they wouldn't have. I think there's guys that have found levels they didn't know they had, and that's reflective on both the players and the coaching staff. Like you said, 9 and especially 10 wins would be a fantastic way to round out the season. That means beating both the Warriors and the Knights in the next 2 weeks to get the double-digit wins in the season. But 10 wins, I think, would be a fair payout on the effort that we've seen from our boys in the final 2/3 of the season, I want to say, barring the South Sydney game. And, that would be a really nice... And 10 wins probably get you... Well, where's that ladder gone? I had it here. 10 wins, because right now we're even with the Dragons on 22 points and the Rabbitohs, although we've got one less win, the Rabbitohs, so they've got a bye in hand, I would say. And we have to play out a game. If we win out, we finish up on 26 points. That could theoretically get you 10th or 11th, depending on how some other results play out, which would look nice. But I think getting 10 wins for the merit of getting 10 wins is really a really good badge for the team.
Yep. Here's another question, because it's going to come down, it's going to raise its head in the next week or two with team selections. Sean Russell, he will either be fit this coming week or for the last week. Do you bring him back in and push Dylan Brown back out? Because that was the direction that Jason Ryles was going down.
I think you have to. I mean, Sean Russell's here. Dylan isn't. Russell's doing a great job. Dylan's done a good job. Like, he hasn't been bad by any measure. But Sean Russell was Jason Ryles' guy for the entire season, to the point that he was keeping Bailey Simonson out. And, look where that went. So, yeah, I think Sean Russell comes back in. Or that would be pending his fitness, obviously. So if you say he's fit for next week, then I would say he comes back in next week. Now, what happens with Dylan Brown after that gets interesting. Is there a spot somewhere else in the team for Dylan in terms of the bench? Probably not. But Dylan can go back to being 18th man, knowing full well he's done a damn good job and has certainly done the furthest thing from disgracing himself and how he's conducted himself since signing for Newcastle.
Yep. What about the pre-game rumours about Zach Lomax not playing?
There was some serious ducks and drakes going on there. I don't know if you saw the NRL physio thread. There was about 8 different replies, and I think Lomax was saying he was playing, but other players were saying he was, and I think some of the other boys were having some fun with that one. That was probably the most composed we've seen Zach Lomax in a while. He had a good game. Got much better runs at the ball tonight, had a couple of good catches. Obviously rocked the ball out really well, and defensively was a bit more assured than we'd seen in recent weeks.
So the Eels, I mean, Zach, I'll say now because the week's over, Zach had a rest from training this week. So you would have had some rumours that came about as a result of that. But we've seen so many times in the past going and watching training where players will stand down from training through the week, and then next thing they're at the captain's run or they're running out with the team on match day. It's always a matter of, like, I guess if they've got a niggle just managing that or managing their load, and especially as you get towards the end of the season, would there be any point with 2 games to go that the Eels rest Zach Lomax, John?
This is I think that if you're going to rest him, you would have rested him earlier. At least that was my philosophy on it. I feel like at this point, the only thing you would stand the game would be blooding someone, and I don't think there's much available right now because I have a concern that we might have picked up an injury in the lower grades today, which you have to wait and see what the official word is on there. But it leaves you pretty sparse in terms of options to play behind him outside of Dylan, and you can obviously play Dylan in the centres and Russell on the wing. But I would lean against resting him, but by the same token, maybe he gets a week off because it's been a long season for Zach, and that's why I thought we might have pulled the trigger on trying to recuperate him a little bit earlier post-Origin, maybe indirectly after Origin 3, but we didn't. We between, I imagine it would have been his decision. He wanted to press through for the team, but sometimes you've got to protect the player from themselves, and maybe we didn't do that this year with Zach. He had a huge workload, and I think he just was a bit banged up.
Well then, John, I wonder, is a rest from training in any given week good enough as a rest? Like if you're told
that's a player-to-player thing, I think, mate. I don't think that's a hard and fast rule. I think there are some players that respond positively to a week off of training and find a way to stay refreshed and recharged for the actual game itself. But it is also worth considering that a week off from training is one thing, but an NRL game is putting your body through a car crash. Like the physicality of an NRL game, we literally just saw it tonight with what the Eels are doing to the Roosters. You come out of that with like so many bruises, contusions, just pain in general. And if you're coming into a game with, if he's got banged up hands or if he's got, a dodgy back or whatever, like this is not speculation. This is just like a what if sort of thing. They don't get better. Like they just don't. You're playing through pain. And yeah, that's why I thought maybe post-Origin might rest him. We might still rest him. I don't know. But the playing stocks behind him are a little bit sparse right now with the Bailey Simonson situation, and then if there was an injury in the New South Wales Cup today, it'll also hurt our playing stocks. Yep.
Okay, John, time to hit the chat and see what people have said with the 3-2-1s as we wrap up.
Let me go back up because we got them off the rip. We had the Blue and Gold Army first in, I think. Yeah, Blue and Gold Army podcast first in. No, Blake was first in. He says 3 points, Jack Williams, 2 to Moses, 1 to Walker. Special mention to Samrani and Geimer. Didn't have big moments like some of the above, but competed really hard, particularly off the ball. Great shout out there, Blake. We got Blue and Gold Army podcast saying 3 to Moses, the captain, 2 to Lomax, 1 to Walker. Who else is next? Where are the 3-2-1s gone? Has chat just gone past it? Oh no, chat has gone past it. We've gone too far. I can't go back up. 1 second.
Oh no.
We might have to commission a repoll, guys. Yeah.
Throw them in now while we talk about it. John, who is your 3?
Like I said, you probably have to separate the 3-2-1 for the Mitchell Moses Award this week. I thought Moses was talismanic tonight. In chat, there was a reference to his kicking game being an absolute cheat code, and yeah, it really was. Anytime the Roosters had a remotely competitive defensive set, he just pushed them back to their 10-metre mark. He tormented their back three with some of the meanest non-torpedo bombs I've seen in a while, and one torpedo bomb that James Tedesco did not want a bar of, that by a very fortunate twist of fate for the Roosters led to a 20-metre restart because he only was competing for the ball off the bounce. So, look, I'll separate Mitchell Moses because he was just in Mitchell Moses territory tonight. And, again, the discussion among the neutrals is really fascinating for Mitch now. I have not seen a narrative shift on a player so much within 18 months in a long time. People begrudgingly respected him in the past, but between Origin football and when he's been available for Parramatta, the amount of enhancement that his reputation has undergone in the last sub 2 years is crazy, and he is now fated as perhaps the game's premier halfback, which I don't think is undeserved. So, Mitchell,
John, you should have heard the crowd react to that torpedo bomb going up.
Yeah.
There was the gasps as flew off the boot because the sound that it made for
Just
a start,
the
you
sonic
just knew
boom.
that he'd hit it sweetly,
Yeah.
as sweetly as you could. And then there was, and I'm sure a lot of people in the stadium as well were carrying on with the noise just to make it even more uncomfortable for Tedesco. But yeah, that was a big moment. Yeah. And but then that solo try that he manufactured was that was just,
it was shades of
playing.
Of Kristen Inu. I know when Inu was on the sideline when he did it, but to kick so far to the other side and then get around them back in and beat the cover chase and get two hands to the ball with a push in the back was very, very good.
So John, look, leave it. You have to leave him in there. You have to give him the 3 points. I have to give him the 3 points as well, because he was the man that just continually posed questions for the Roosters and made their night uncomfortable. So he gets the 3. The 2 points, who gets you 2?
2 tries. Josh Adokar. Intercept came at a crucial point in the game early on. Converted that into a huge run against the play. Still banged out. I know he had a line break there, but still got 156 metres. And he is the energizer bunny for this team. He is, I suppose, the yin and yang to Mitchell Moses in many ways. Moses, the focus, fury, and aggression as the leader, and Adokar, the release valve for the team, the guy that normalizes like I said, the channel. It's not negative energy, but the channeled, focused energy from Moses to just take the edge off it. And I think he's been a huge part of the team.
Yeah, I'm going 2 points to Riley Smith.
Great shout.
You talk about the energizer bunny, Riley's effort on effort plays.
He's a player that, if you had access to advanced metrics in terms of your off the ball work, would probably dominate the wider NRL. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep doing it in his career, because he's off the ball work. He's work out a dummy half, or marker, sorry, the defensive dummy half is just on another level. And Hugo Savala will legitimately check under his bed for Riley tonight. It was just see him at the corner of his eyes everywhere he goes. 1 point for me, Jack the Ripper. Jack Williams was huge for us tonight. Ran some nice lines outside of Joash. Defensively, he's been good for a misread here and there, but tonight locked in on the defensive reads and absolutely popped some of the big players from the Roosters. I think he got Lindsay Collins an absolute bell ringer at one point, jolted the ball free. There was another Rooster he also knocked over. And I've got a swathe of honourable mentions, but I will go my 1 point to Jack Williams.
I'm going to give my 1 point to Junior Paulo. I came very close to giving it to Joash.
Yeah, Joash very good. Junior's running
and
mate,
having it at all spine.
Yeah, all spine. All spine
3,
points.
2, 1.
Yeah, but yeah, Junior's running mate Jermaine also very good, mate. Had a very solid game.
Yeah, he was another one that came into consideration. But I just thought it was a leadership performance from Junior tonight. He had that error that was detected where his pass that went backwards was determined to be a knock-on where the ball went forward. So go figure. But that's how the bunker ruled it. Apart from that, I just thought he had some big moments defensively. He was really just a consistent performer tonight. I thought it was a leadership game from him. But like you, I've probably got a list of honourable mentions as well. But I'll hear yours first, John.
I mean, the centres were great. Will Penasini and Dylan Barron had good involvement, both over 100 metres. Will had a really good battle with Billy Smith, and I think he took the points there pretty handily. Also that nice involvement in the first Sam Ronnie try. Like you said, Papa Lee, Iyongi, both heavily involved throughout the game. Didn't have any eye-popping moments per se, but just good involvements. Kelmer was physically very good in that opening stint. I think he was a real tone setter for the Eels. When he ran over Sam Walker, obviously was a turning point in the game, but beyond that, he didn't get outright breaks, but the Roosters were really struggling to contain him, and he only got 76 metres off 13 carries, which doesn't look like a lot off the sheet, but I think it doesn't tell a full story of how much the Roosters' left edge struggled to contain him. And I know he had the one error in the red zone, which wasn't great, but he also had a great try involvement to put Jermaine over. Geimer off the bench, Dury off the bench, Samrani off the bench, and then the milestone man, Dylan Walker. A lot of very good efforts tonight. In fact, it'd be hard to press not to find an honourable mention. It would be to find an honourable mention.
John, you almost stole my thunder there, because my honourable mention is basically any player that I didn't mention in the 3-2-1, because I thought it was a match where a lot of players were always going to have to fulfil their roles for the Eels to get a win. The fact that the Eels didn't just win, but they won convincingly, says that you had a lot of players that were hitting their KPIs for the game, that were making significant contributions to the performance. So it feels, in some senses, it feels strange having a 3-2-1 when it's been such a great team performance. But like you, I do want to give a bit of a shout out to Josh Addo-Carr, because I didn't give him any points in the 3-2-1, but his intercept was so critical. They were starting to look like they were going to score the Roosters, and they had us for numbers a couple of times when they went out wide. And the fact that Josh just went for that intercept, the desperation to catch that ball when he'd already tapped it up, to catch it, to be able to take off downfield. And then, of course, anytime you get to watch the Fox in full flight is a good day. And we got to see what it means to have that level of speed in the Eels team. So I do give him a special mention. Now, if we've got 3-2-1s from our chat room.
Neil Ross goes 3 for the captain, Moses 2 for Jack, Williams 1 for the Fox. Who else we got here? Carl says 3 for Moses, 2 for Hopgood, 1 for Raleigh, and then gives half a point to Kelmer for the knockout on Sam Walker. Eminem says 3 for Hopgood, 2 for Walker, 1 for Moses. Honourable mentions to Williams, Addo-Carr, and Riley Smith. Mitch says 3 for Moses, 2 for Hopgood, 1 for Smith. Seb says 3 for Williams, 2 for Penasini, 1 for Smith. Honourable mentions to the captain. Paul Taylor goes Williams, Hopgood, Moses for his 3-2-1. Gus goes Williams 3, Moe 2, Riley 1. So we're seeing a bit of a trend here. Sean, Williams 3, Riley 2, Kelmer 1. Jamie goes 3 for Hopgod. Yeah, he was very good tonight. 2 for Williams, 1 for Moses. Should be Moses, sorry, but he's going to go Riley Smith. Yeah, I'm okay with that line of thought, Jamie. Like I said, Mitch is a bit of in his own territory with the points often, so happy for Moses to get bumped or snubbed, in inverted commas there, if you want to go that route. Got Dave saying Moses 3, Williams 2, Walker 1. And I think that is the majority of the 3-2-1s. So, yeah, plenty of consistent pollers there. And, yeah, I think we're pretty fairly reflective of the efforts we saw on the field.
Well, John, I think this just about wraps up the Instant Reaction podcast. It is so much more fun to be able to talk about a win
just
rather than
little bit
like last week trying to find the composure to talk about that game. And who knows, maybe our form was a bit better given that the South come out last night and won 40-0.
It looks a bit better, doesn't it, when you look at the results this week? So maybe it wasn't.
Well, not last night, Thursday night, but
yeah, Thursday night they pumped the Dragons, who have been very competitive in recent times. So yeah.
That was an embarrassing loss for the Dragons.
Yeah, look, we had an embarrassing loss. That was an embarrassing loss with a exclamation mark. So yeah, great to see the boys turn around against the Roosters. Can they use that momentum for the remaining 2 games of the season? Knock over the Warriors in New Zealand next week, hopefully, and then homestand against the Knights to finish off the season. It would be fantastic to go 3 straight wins on the trot to round out 2025, bank that 10-win season, and have some real momentum going into the preseason. But still plenty of football to be played. And the Warriors and the Knights, well, the Warriors in particular, looking back to their maybe not best, but back to some good football this week. And Newcastle are an absolute wild card. So some real football to be played, and it's certainly not going to be an easy stroll to a 10-win season.
So, John, thank you for having this podcast ready to go so quickly after full time. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, Greg and the team. Greg, I hope you're having a good night tonight. And thanks for the message earlier. Para Leagues, the home of the Eels, where we were earlier this afternoon for the preview of both the NRLW and the NRL. And of course, we'll see you there in the final round of the season when the Eels take on the Knights. So make sure you get up to Sturlo's. It's the last chance to catch up with us for the year. We'd really love to see you there. Really love to have you come up and say g'day to us. Thank you to everyone that's been there live in chat. It's always good to get that feedback immediately and to have your comments as part of our show. So we really do like that. And John, as I always say, go you mighty Eels.
Indeed. See you all on Tuesday.